Good morning, everybody. Today we have ourselves an interesting one. So we're going to be taking a look at a septic system from 1967. No records from the county, so Lord knows what we're walking into. And then we're going to have a nice easy one with one that was installed in the 1990s. That one should be straightforward and pretty good. But I think this 1960s is going to be either really brand new or it's going to be problematic. So I'm going to drive to that first property, and then when I get there, I'm going to show you what we see. And we're gonna go through everything, and hopefully we don't find any shenanigans. We just got here and gotta find where the tank's hiding at. So now I get to play the fun game of walk around their yard, and hopefully I find something obvious to help me find it. But there's so much vegetation here that it might be a little tricky. I'm starting to think as I walk around, the tank might end up being in that mess. I'm really hoping it's somewhere over here. Unfortunately, I don't see anything to give me any indication of where a cleanout might be hiding. So pretty much what that means next is I have to get a metal detector and try to find where things are hiding by using that. All right, I found the tank. It took me a good minute, but it's pretty much exactly where I expected it to be. Let's go ahead and flip this around so you can see what I'm looking at. So we can see here we got all this nice lush vegetation, big tree, all these little tiny trees sticking up out of the ground. And right there, that's our septic system. Now, the problem with having a system like this in all of these trees is obviously roots. So when we're looking at inspecting a system, it's important to not only pop open that lid and see where's the solids, where's the water level, but also to take a mirror and a flashlight and look inside of the tank. Now, this older style of system doesn't generally have a manhole riser at the surface, so we are going to recommend one of those be put in. Sometimes you get lucky and they actually have a riser already installed. A riser is the large manhole lid. It's the 24-inch round lids that you'll usually see sitting in people's yards. Sometimes they're concrete, sometimes they're plastic, sometimes they're even homemade. Like if they're really, really big and thick, those are usually the homemade ones. They're a pain to move. But the ones that are pre-manufactured either in a concrete plant or some other facility, it'll usually be 24 inches circular, and you can just pick them up pretty straightforward, move them out of the way, and then you can see inside of the middle of the tank. All tanks in our area will usually have 2 lids, but most commonly you'll have 3. You have 2 small ones, one in the front, one in the back, and you'll have your big one in the middle. Now, there are some manufacturers who would do 2 lids, and that's where you would get a big lid in the front, big lid in the back, and then you could put a riser on either one. Modern systems, you have to have a riser on both front and back, or both of the chambers, right? Just that way you can actually properly maintain everything. These older systems, that requirement wasn't there. So we're looking back at this, we see we got our clean out on the front of the tank. This is gonna be the front portion, right? Where that little root thing, stump, whatever we wanna call that part of the tree, that should be where the manhole riser would be. And the back of the tank would be like right over here. Generally, these are about 8 foot by 4 foot for this age. More modern systems are usually 10 foot by 5 feet, just kind of depends on who builds it. But we should see a riser here, but when I poke around with my probe, we're not getting any concrete or plastic, so we know that that does not exist. If you were to dig down the 3 feet to get to the tank, obviously there would be a lid on top of the tank, and that's where you would basically excavate around it, put the riser rings on to bring it to the surface. Now, the reason, again, you want to have these risers is to pump the tank more efficiently. Pumping the tank more efficiently is going to make it to where you can actually have a longer life out of your absorption system. This particular absorption system is going to have a dry well, which is going to be just past the tank. When we're looking in the woods, right back there is where the dry well is going to be. So basically it'll be a straight line from the house to the tank. The solids will fall out of suspension. The solids will get stuck in the tank, and then the water will work its way over there to the dry well to where it kind of disperses into the surrounding soil. We don't really use dry wells or seepage pits anymore. Nowadays, almost everybody uses a drain field, unless you've got like a weird site circumstance, like if you need a sand mount or a drip system or any of the other innovative stuff. Most commonly you'll see drain fields because they're fairly straightforward to install. Sometimes you'll get some goofy stuff. It just depends on your soil and your perk rate. The expected lifespan for a septic system generally is about 30 or 40 years, and that's going to be mostly for the absorption system component. The tanks, they'll usually last a little bit longer, but they do have some of their own issues that pop up from time to time. So usually your consumable piece is going to be the absorption system. And again, pumping it helps to increase that longevity because that's like 20 grand. It depends on your state. Some states might be a little bit cheaper, some states might be a little bit more expensive. But you don't want to go and let that thing fail just out of the blue, because that's a very large expense that you don't get to see because it's all buried. You basically are putting a car underground and you can't touch it. It's just there as a utility. Not a very fun expense to have to pay. With this particular system, unfortunately, it's got all these trees around it, so all of this mess has to get removed because you cannot have this many pieces of vegetation over top of a septic system because you're just asking for problems. Septic inspections are regulated now in Maryland, so there's a rule book, and the rule book explicitly says no trees over top of your septic. Now, I don't know if this stuff is classified as a bush, but it certainly looks like a tree to me, so that's why you gotta get rid of the trees. Most of the time, just coming in, chopping it down, calls it a day. The big one, you might be able to make an argument not to have to get rid of it, but really you don't want any of that stuff anywhere over top of your system because once those roots get in there, it will destroy the concrete, it'll destroy the piping, and then you're gonna get a clog and a backup towards the house. So this one's pretty much over. We gotta go one more property today to see what other shenanigans we're gonna get, but that one's gonna be from the 90s, so hopefully once we get there, we don't see anything super crazy. So I'm gonna clean up all my stuff here. We'll get moving on to the next one, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Just pulled into the final property. I am so excited. This house, it looks immaculate. So this septic system should look really good. Usually when the house is looking fresh, clean, nice floors, nice interior, everything's up to date, most of the time they're also taking care of their well and their septic system. So this one has a clean out and a riser, much like we were talking about in the last one, but this is going to be from the 1990s. So we're going to see a little bit of a different variation in how things were done. Let's go ahead, pop everything open, and I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. So when we're looking at this, we'll see that we have our clean out right here and the manhole riser. This is going to be in the middle of the tank. Just like that other tank, you can see that you're going to have a large round circular lid. This same style existed even back in the 60s. So pretty much the new system like this is what the old system also looked like. So this is what we're wanting on the middle of the other tank that we saw a moment ago. So now that I've had a chance to actually look through everything, this tank actually looks like it's in pretty good shape. It used to have concrete baffles, much like the first tank that we looked at had concrete baffles. They've replaced those with PVC at this point. Now, one of the biggest things that I find going wrong with septic systems, especially when they're about 20 or 30 years old, the concrete is going to corrode. And eventually that concrete will corrode so bad that it's got nowhere to go but off, right? When the baffle falls off, generally what they'll do is they'll extend the PVC pipe a little bit further or take what's already there and then put the new sanitary tee on that. And that's going to make your new baffle, and it's plastic. It ain't going anywhere. So it's always important that when you're pumping the tank, inspecting the tank, whatever, that they're looking, is that baffle still there, right? So when you get your tank pumped through the manhole riser, it makes it easier for the guy who's pumping to actually see if it's there. You might be saying, oh, who wants to make it easy for the guy servicing my system? Well, if you have that manhole riser in the middle, it doesn't give him an excuse to miss the baffle, right? Maybe he didn't look because you made it difficult. If you make it easier for him to look, obviously, he's more likely to look inside of your system and tell you, hey, you've got a problem. You got to get this fixed now, rather than waiting 10 years and then all of a sudden your 20-year-old septic system's failed because the baffle's been missing for a while and you clogged everything up, got a bunch of biomat in your drain fields, and now you're replacing the whole thing over a $400 fix. So this one's pretty straightforward. Everything looks like it's working, doing what it's supposed to do. The other one, like I said, we got some problems with that tree being over top of the septic system, but this one we don't have to worry about any of that, even though we are kind of in the woods. There's no trees over the system, so that's good, right? I hope that you found this enjoyable. If you learned something, hit that like button, hit subscribe. If there's a conversation that you want to have, if you have a question, leave a comment below. I try to answer all the questions as they come in. Leave a comment, tell me what's going on with your property, and maybe I can help provide a little bit of clarity or kind of advise you, what should you do next? Maybe you should call somebody to pump the tank. Maybe you should have something excavated to figure out what's going on. I look forward to having those conversations, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.